Hello everybody, welcome to this week's live stream. I do these normally every Friday, occasionally like last Friday. I don't. That was the payrolls, massive moves in, relatively speaking, in stock markets last Friday. The way it works is we'll take a quick look ahead to some of the big announcements, big week next week for announcements. Then we'll jump onto the charts, take a look at indices, some currencies, some commodities, Bitcoin, and then if there's anything you want looking at, if you put it in the chat box, I can see a few people have put things in already. Put it in the chat, and then we'll go back and look at the stuff there. Interestingly, even as we start, the S&P 500, so the broader US stock market index, is making a new recovery high. So we're at the best levels since August of last year. It's going to be interesting, I think, because we have these old highs at 43.25, which were quite a barrier, obviously, and we saw the market sell off from there. Let's see what happens. Could be an interesting week next week. Anyway, let's just get some of the housekeeping stuff done as usual. Let's get a risk warning done. This presentation is only for educational purposes. It does not contain and should not be construed as containing investment advice or an investment recommendation or an offer of or solicitation for a transaction in any financial instrument. David Jones accepts no responsibility for any use that may be made of these comments and for any consequences that result. You should consider whether you understand how spread bets, CFDs, futures, foreign exchange work, and whether you can afford to take the high risk of losing your money. Trading is risky. Right, next week, big week next week, every day. Wednesday's the big one, but Tuesday we've got US inflation data. I mean, US inflation has been falling. Clearly, inflation has been very much the flavour of markets for probably more than a year now, hasn't it? But we've seen US inflation dropping back. Be interesting to see what that looks like. Wednesday, we've got UK GDP. So how well or not is the UK economy doing? We'll find out on Wednesday. And the big one, Wednesday night, US interest rates. I got no idea actually what's expected. I didn't get a chance to do any research before this, but Wednesday night we've got the US interest rate decision. Should we do a quick Google? Let's see what the expectation is. Interest rate expectations. Blah, blah, blah. If anybody knows, put it in the chat. Oh, expected to hold. There we go. So we're expecting no change according to Reuters. And who am I to argue with Reuters? So Fed seen on hold in June, but 1/3 of economists expect a hike soon. So will not raise rates for the first time in well over a year at its June 13th, 14th meeting, blah, blah, blah. There we go. Okay. So no change, but as usual, even if it ends up being no change, it's the narrative and the discussion around that can move markets. So Wednesday evening, UK time. Is it 6 or 7 p.m? I can never remember. UK time, whatever, next Wednesday. Then Thursday, European interest rate decision, Thursday lunchtime. Again, probably be the press conference and the chat around that. We'll see how that goes. And then Friday, Japanese interest rate decisions. So it's, it's a lot next week, isn't it? So plenty of volatility potentially next week off the back of these rate decisions. Let's see what happens. A quick plug for my sponsor. I'm going to talk about something different today. I do run a trading course, as you know. There's the details on the trading course. You can find out more information on the website. But what I'm going to talk about today, that was the trading I did on the trading course. I've talked about that before, because I think that most people who run trading courses don't know what they're talking about, and it's all a bit of a con. I thought I should do real trading. So I did real trading from November through to January, made it public on YouTube. That was the difference. I do trade all the time anyway, but I made the results public as I was going along. That was the return on a £4,000 account, booked profits of just over £2,000, £2,000. Sorry, I have to say, of course, past performance is no guarantee to future performance. So using the principles I outlined in the course, I'm doing it again. I've got this account here that we use for the YouTube videos, that I use for the YouTube videos, and we trade a mix of stuff in there. But I'm also doing it in another of my own accounts. This is all real money. This is not dummy money. So I've got, I'm building up again this, doing a fresher track record. This is from May. I think so far since May, this account is up about 40%, but I have had a really good 4 weeks. I said that in the WhatsApp group I run. I've had the best 4 weeks since January, since trading in January. So I'm having a bit of a good patch at the moment, but I'll publish all of these results at the end of July, and we'll dip in and out of these accounts and do some trades today. So there's lots of information on my trading performance if you go to the website. But what I'm going to talk about today is this WhatsApp group I run. So I run this WhatsApp group as part of the support and the ongoing support and market commentary for those people who do the trading course. And recently, in the last couple of weeks, I've opened it up to people who aren't on the trading course. So if you'd like to join the WhatsApp group, you get a daily update from me in the morning, what I'm looking at for today. Today it was dollar index was one. I was looking at, we'll have a look at that in a minute. Trades I'm running. I came in today, I was long sterling yen, long gold, long DAX. So I've come out of the sterling yen trade. I'm still long gold, I'm still on the DAX. Q&A, so people on the WhatsApp group can fire in any questions. That's it. So that's if you want to join the WhatsApp group, you can. It's not free, obviously, because I don't give this stuff away for free. But if you go to my website, davidjonestrading.co.uk, the link is in the description. And if you go to subscribe, just up there, you can join the WhatsApp group. It's normally £50 a month. If you click select and put in the code, I think you need to sign up first with your email address so the website knows you exist. Put in the code YouTube, apply. It will give you a 20% discount for the first month. So you can try it for a month and see what you think. But it's been running for about 5 months now. I'm active in it every day, talking about stuff. So this is a snapshot of, that was yesterday's, whatever I talked about yesterday, NASDAQ. I was trying to buy the NASDAQ yesterday, buy the dip in the NASDAQ, and I'll put a chart of the day sort of thing. So that's it. It's all on the website. So if you go to the website, davidjonestrading.co.uk, if you want to try the WhatsApp group out, you can use the code YouTube, get a 20% discount on the first month and decide what you think after that. You can also sign up for my newsletter. I haven't sent the newsletter out for a couple of weeks just because I've been a bit lazy, to be honest. So if you go to the website, the homepage, you can sign up there for the newsletter, and I send that out normally over the weekend. That's free of charge. And of course on the website, you can see all the details of the courses I run and a bit more about the performance stats for when I was trading this approach openly from November through to January. But if you fancy the WhatsApp group, sign up for that and use that code and you'll save a bit of money, but it's well worth it. Okay, what are we doing? So that's the website, davidjonestrading.co.uk. Where should we start? Where shall we start? Let's flip onto the markets. I think let's start with stock markets. Let's start with the S&P, as the S&P is moving to its highest point since August of last year. Yeah, if you've watched any of these before, S&P and NASDAQ, I've been bullish on these markets, for most of the last few months. Happy to buy the dips. I do have some long-term NASDAQ trades open. We'll take a look at trades in a minute. It's going to be interesting next week on the S&P, what happens up here, 43.25. It was a problem, as we can see in August last year. Let's see what happens. But I'm absolutely always happy to buy the dips in these markets. I did miss the dip in the NASDAQ yesterday because I was out. I do have a trade on the DAX. But that was a really interesting, just a logical trade to do yesterday in this NASDAQ. We had these markets go rocketing higher end of last week, then moved higher after the payrolls and left behind 14.2 on the NASDAQ, came back down yesterday, traded down to 14,240. And here we are 350 points higher. Ba-boom. So, yeah, US market still really strong. There's a lot of talk, or there has been a lot of talk about recession and all that, stuff. How's it going to affect markets? Well, we can see markets do not care. So if markets don't care, then I don't care either. And I'm happy to be a buyer of the Nasdaq or the S&P on the dips, really. But let's see what happens. 43.25 on the Nasdaq. Let's see. We've got this US interest rate statement next week, so we could see quite a bit of volatility off the back of that. So I think we're in for an interesting week next week. So that's stock markets. DAX. I do have a DAX trade on. I've been in the DAX trades, slightly in profit at the moment, but you can see it's been a pretty sideways few days. I was still bullish on the DAX. The trend is up. We got good support of 15,480. Let's just tidy this up a bit and see what it looks like. Hold on, let's have a look. There we go. So the trend in the DAX is up. It very briefly in May pushed out to fresh all-time highs. I'd still be a buyer of the dip. I think it's only if we start to lose these old lows from perhaps the beginning of April, around 15.4, that I'd start to worry that perhaps the DAX is in a bit of trouble. But that looks positive. FTSE's a little bit different, of course. FTSE's got a different makeup to the others. So a great run from October into Feb. Bit chopperama since then. I'd probably do nothing on the FTSE. I think it's maybe for a short-term trade. It's interesting next week if it sells off below 7,500. But for me, I must admit, I don't pay that much attention to the FTSE. I think the Nasdaq and the S&P are normally plenty of opportunities during the week for me. And Japan, I thought I'd include this because someone brought it up in the WhatsApp group this week. I never look at the Japanese market at all. But it's really interesting, that this market, the Nikkei, is breaking out to its best levels in, I don't know how long, because my data doesn't go back that far, but for quite a long time. And, absolutely another buy the dip market for me. I'd rather see a bigger dip, but, a great trend in the Nikkei since the middle of March on this chart. So we're 3 months into that. Lots of support from like 30,500 upwards. And it's turned around really quickly this week. So, another interesting global stock market. So stock markets all look bullish to me, That's it, really. Carry on. For me, I am going to carry on buying the dips. If we look in this account, the one I use for these YouTube live sessions, again, this is real money. I think this account is up. Hang on, I'll show you the numbers. So we started using this account in, I think, beginning of May or something like that. Beginning of April. Here we go. Let's go. So it doesn't show you open positions. It doesn't count the open positions in this scorecard. Ignore that performance. That's not quite right. But on the trades done on this account for the YouTube sessions, 75% of them have been correct. That is much higher than my usual average. My usual average is about 58 to 60%. So I think that will calm down as time goes on and we do more trades. Risk reward, almost 4-1, which again is somewhat exaggerated, I would suggest. And there's this big Nasdaq trade in there, big winner in there. You can see that made a lot of profit. Losing trade, Meta Platforms lost money on that. But that's what the P&L looks like. So started trading it for YouTube in about April, blah, 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 blah. So it's booked profits of £642. It started off as a £2,000 account. So 642 booked. And at the moment, £440 of running profits on these trades here. So up about £1,000. So it's gone from £2,000 to £3,000. Again, past performance is no guarantee of future performance. The Tesla trade is doing well. Perhaps we'll look at that in a sec. Snowflake, I think that was the last trade we did, wasn't it? From the live session 2 weeks ago. That's done okay. We'll come back and we'll do some trades in there. Anyway, so stock markets, all look good. All look good to me. Let's take a look at currencies. Maybe there's a trade here, actually. I was looking at this today. This is the dollar index. Maybe this is a trade we'll do. So the dollar index, I often say I'm a big fan of this market. Some great trends over time, over the years in the dollar index. Bang, 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 bang. And it's been selling off since September of last year. Again, the question for me is, I have we seen the worst of the sell-off? Are we seeing it make a base here? I don't know. It's been a little bit sideways since Feb, but good support down at 100.85. Bit choppy at the moment. But I looked at this morning. I wonder if there is a trade there. We have been pretty sideways since the 24th of May, so we're 2 weeks into this, but we're at the bottom of the range. 103.30 ish had been support, so I think that's an interesting trade to do. So maybe let's do that trade. Let's put a dollar index trade in. I don't think we have a dollar index trade, do we? Let's do that. Dollar index, US dollar index. There we go. So the trade we're going to do, I want to be a buyer because I'm going to take the view yesterday's sell-off is overdone and this 103.30 sort of area is going to hold the market up. I'll give it a bit of wiggle room though. So I'm going to go, for a stop loss, I'm going to go 102.90. I'm happy to risk, let's say, a couple of $100 on the trade. If you want to find out who I trade with, I've done a short video on my website as well that explains why I trade with the broker I trade with and details in there. Oh, I haven't got enough margin to do it. I haven't got enough margin on the account. I've got too much money tied up in other trades. Oh, that's a bit of a swine. Hang on. Can I do one? How much margin have I got? Let's do a couple. What's the margin requirement? 1640. All right, that'll do. Let's do that. So we'll buy it at 103.45. Let's place the trade. So I think that's interesting, given that the dollar index, it is sitting on this old support. Let's see if it holds. So pretty boring, a bit sideways perhaps over the last couple of weeks, but I wonder, will we see a bit of a dollar recovery next week? Pound against the dollar has had a great run and is still having a great run. So let's flip it over to the dailies. So let me just, again, tidy some of these things off. So these are on here because of my own trading. So if we have a look at perhaps the trend, if we take it off that low, I mean, that trend is still continuing in pound against the dollar. So again, that might have been a bit of an interesting trade at the end of May. Let's see, can it get back up to 127, that sort of area? It's for me, where it is now, it wouldn't be a trade for me. I'd rather try and buy a pullback. But let's see. Yeah, that trend in the pound against the dollar continues. Euro dollar is a bit scrappier. We had this great trend in the euro off the September lows last year. It's fallen out of it and it's a little bit just non-committal, I would say. I think it would be interesting if it pushed back near these old lows. These are actually the lows from the beginning of the year in January, around about 105, but not much really for me there, I don't think, on that one. Dollar yen. I'm long dollar yen, a longer term trades in dollar yen. This is on the other account in here. You can see that I think I've been long that, I think since February or March. So I've got a longer term trade on that. I mean, that could be interesting. It ties in a bit with the dollar index trade, of course, on the short term chart, where we've seen these lows hold in dollar yen. But I would quite happily buy a deeper pullback in dollar yen. So for me, the market to watch next week is this dollar index, just from a short-term point of view, to see if these lows hold. So from an FX point of view, currency point of view, that for me is perhaps the more interesting market to watch next week. Let's take a look at gold and silver. So I am in a gold trade at the moment. It's been a bit boring and sideways gold. I bought it yesterday at 1947. I think I bought gold yesterday. If you look on the dailies, again, let's just start with a clean screen. I would say that is just about hanging on to its uptrend, the price of gold, which started back in November of last year. So, there's an argument, if you thought that uptrend was going to continue, to be a buyer. If I was buying that from a more medium-term point of view, I would want my stop the other side of probably 1880. That's where I would go for a stop. So I'd be sort of slightly more bullish than bearish on gold at the moment, but clearly a lot of it depends as to what happens with the dollar index. I did the trade yesterday just because it got knocked back to the old support. So I bought in about 11 o'clock yesterday morning. Let's see what happens. So yeah, it's been again a bit sideways over the last couple of weeks. Silver, I must admit, I've missed this move in silver. I think it's been a good move in silver over the last week. It's not a market that I trade very often, silver, but if we looked at the trend off the lows from last summer, August last year, we'd say the bigger trend is up, absolutely. Be a buyer of dips on silver. It's sort of hanging around in the middle at the moment. I think it'd be interesting if it got put under some pressure and we saw it got knocked back to maybe 22. Something like that. It could make for an interesting medium-term trade on silver, but not a lot really for me at the moment. But I think on the hourlies, we've had a nice little trend in the shorter term since the 26th of May, which was 2 weeks ago. So again, I'd be looking, if I was looking to do anything, I'd be looking to be a buyer of the dip on silver really. So not too much exciting for me. Oil is a bit the same. Oil's a bit, pretty volatile the last couple of days. If we flip this to a daily, but pretty sideways over the last 5 or 6 weeks, isn't it? What do you do? What do you do with oil? For me, I did think about doing a trade yesterday, but it turned around a bit too quickly. It's just a bit sideways overall. There's no real trend on that medium-term chart. So there's not a lot doing for oil, nothing too exciting. I did look at this move yesterday. This was at 4 o'clock yesterday UK time, but it just reversed a bit too quickly and it's gone nowhere since then. So nothing in oil. Natural gas, the old favourite. If you look at the big picture for natural gas, that big trend is absolutely still down in natural gas. But where it is interesting, if we zoom things in, let's get rid of that for now. It is trying to recover. It has been trying to recover for about 2 months now, since the middle of April. We do have just about higher highs and higher lows. So, there's an argument of being a buyer of the dip on natural gas. You can see, the recovery over the last week or so is there. As we know, it is an absolute nutcase market, natural gas, and it can go crashing lower like that, can't it? But there's absolutely an argument for being a buyer today at 220. I don't know if I've got enough margin to do it actually on natural gas. Let me see, because I've just used all my margin on my dollar index trade. Let's see if there's is it possible? What's the smallest I can trade? I can trade 1. What's the margin? Oh, it's 180. That's all right. What I'm going to do, let's do a little trade on natural gas against my better judgment. Let's go with this trend in natural gas we've been in over the last week. And for stops, because it's natural gas, it's a crazy market. I'm going to go down around 210, something like that. Where is it? Let's say 210. What's my risk at 210 for natural gas? $197. Okay, let's do that. Let's see if that little trade is going to chug along. Let's put that trade in and see what happens. But I think that's interesting, But again, big picture, the big trend is still down. It's got some work to do to change this big trend, this big downtrend. So if you're waiting for a turnaround in natural gas, I think there's nothing wrong with still being a little bit patient. This S&P is absolutely motoring by the looks of it. There we go. NASDAQ, that NASDAQ, missed that. NASDAQ's moved 100 points since the market opened by the looks of it. So, okay. So natural gas, interesting. Bit of a recovery going on. Let's see, can it carry into next week? Yeah, these recoveries in natural gas can fizzle out very quickly, I think, as we know. And then finally, let's take a look at the old Bitcoin. I think I'm still bullish. Yes, I'm still bullish on that. The trend is still up. It's been pretty boring over the last month. Bit of volatility. I'd still be a buyer. If I was a buyer today, I'd probably want my stop at 23,000 or something like that. I think the path of least resistance has been up this year. I think it's a long time until it troubles 68,000 again. But we are seeing this broad recovery for Bitcoin. So I think that's interesting enough. So what's hot to watch then? Well, what's hot, I think, is these stock markets. Here's the S&P. threatening the old highs, 43.25 highs from August last year. Let's see what happens. What's the Nasdaq doing on the dailies? The Nasdaq, what was the high from earlier in the week? 14,672, and it's traded as high as 14,660. So the Nasdaq could be set to break out to its highest levels since April 2022. So that would be a 14-month high on the Nasdaq if it moves about 20 points higher this afternoon. So these US stock markets are very, very strong. Let's have a quick look at some of the open trades. So the biggest winner is Tesla at the moment. So bought Tesla all the way down here. I remember it was the gap, wasn't it? So bought that in April of this year. So bought it a couple of months ago now. It's gapped up today for whatever reason. So that's doing okay. And Snowflake is just a bit choppy, isn't it? We'll have a look at those in a bit more detail in a second. So what I'll do now, I'll have a look at some of the stuff you're looking at. But don't forget, if you want to try the WhatsApp group out, go to the page. You've got to pay some money, which I know is a terrible thing to have to do on the internet. But if you use the code YouTube, you get a 20% discount for the first month, and you get all that stuff during the day. How it works is if you open it up, I get an email saying you've done it, and I'll be in touch and I'll add you to the group. Okay, so that's that. Right, what are we doing? Markets, isn't it? Let's have a look at some of the stuff you weren't looking at. So first in at the top was Tom. Can we have a look at 3M? It's at resistance levels, which goes back over the years. Let's have a look. 3M company. Let's have a look on the dailies. It'll be taking support. We're saying, we're saying these old highs back there. $100. Yeah, it's interesting. I think for me that is a bit of a wait and see for me. Maybe if we make this a weekly chart, we'll see it. So we had these $100 levels that were a problem, and we had a heck of a run up to 260, and here we are all the way back down to where it was in 2012. So 10-year lows on 3M. So for me, it's interesting if it's going to turn around anywhere, then maybe this is a good place, but also absolutely the big trend is still down, isn't it? So I think that's an interesting one to watch. I would want to see it break at least 108 to start thinking about a reversal. So for me, it's one to sort of keep coming back to and see what happens down here. So interesting for the potential for a reversal, but for now, I'd be quite happy to sit it out and see what happens. Redfin, let's have a look at Redfin. Redfin Corp. What do they do then? What do they do? Finance, real estate development. So again, a heck of a run from 2020, COVID lows at about $10, up to $100 nearly. Wow. And then crashing all the way back down again. So again, not one for the faint-hearted, I would suggest. But, you could. I'd rather buy a dip, personally. If it got knocked back to like below $9, I'd rather be a buyer. But the trend is up. The little recovery trend is up, isn't it? So for me, I'd be a buyer of the dip on that. Palantir. This is pretty volatile stock, this, isn't it? So we've had this crazy run. So earnings. This is driven by earnings. So the earnings, okay, they were a bit better than expected. I often say, in runaway markets like this, this one has gone from $7 beginning in May to $15, $16 now. So it's doubled in about 5 weeks. I never chase a market. So for me, I'd be waiting to buy the dip. That's what I would do. So for me, I think it gets a bit more interesting if and when we have a sell-off and we see where it bases. So absolutely cannot argue against that strength over the last 5 weeks. But for me, as a trade or an investment, it's a wait for it to buy the dip. Nvidia. So we got closed out of the last Nvidia trade for a profit. Where was that? What was that trade? So it came out of Nvidia at 391. So made on the 31st of May. So they're 395 today, so they've not moved much. I think we bought in here in the gap. I think it's difficult, isn't it? Because because it's gapped and it's sort of marking time since the earnings gap, isn't it? I mean, so for me, I'd rather buy a sell-off back to maybe start filling this gap a bit, maybe down to 350. If I was a buyer now, I'd put my stop at 360. But that trade does not appeal to me as much as it did when we did it, whenever it was back here. So for me, I'd rather sit it out because it's almost just marking time up here, isn't it? So it's not one for me at the moment. So, but let's see. Let's see what happens. First Solar Inc. Is that the one? Is that the right one? That's interesting, isn't it? That is interesting. I think we've got good trends going on. It's had a bit of some crazy moves, isn't it? I think there's an argument to be a buyer. So we buy First Solar. So for me, if I was going to look at the trends, we've had a good trend since October last year. Looks something like that. I think it's interesting. You know, it's got knocked back. I always say I want to buy the dip. We've had a dip. Bit of support at 170. Let's do the trade. So I want to be a buyer. See if this trend continues. Does it go back to 230? Let's do that. First Solar. I don't know if are they a small company or I think they're a normal company. Oh, I don't think it's covered it. Oh, hang on. No, there we go. Perfect. Right. So what did I say? So 170. Let's say 165 is the stop. So go 165 stop. How many are we buying? How many do I have to buy? I've got to buy 13.4. It's a strange number. Oh, I haven't got enough margin to do it. I need to top this account up. I've got too many trades on this account. But I would be a buyer of that one, personally. So, yeah. We'll come back next week and it'll be like $500, won't it? We've missed out on a good trade there. Let's see. So Phil's saying S&P up over 20%, the lows. So technically a bull market. Netflix, let's have a look at. I haven't looked at those for a while, have we? Netflix. Oh, sorry. Netflix. There we go. Wow, looks good, doesn't it? I'd be a buyer of a dip, not a buyer of up here. And the risk is I miss out. If I was a buyer here, I would put my stop at 340. So I'd rather buy a dip. But that's a great trend in Netflix that's been chugging along for nearly a year now. That recovery in Netflix after they got absolutely smashed, didn't they, in 2021 into 2022. And then, great trend chugging along. Would have been a great hindsight trade back here, back in March. So I would be a buyer of the dip in that one. Buy the FTSE 250. FTSE 250 is an interesting one, isn't it? We'll have to look at a tracker because it's not coming up, which I think it might look a bit. That doesn't look like a FTSE 250 to me. Hold on. Let's see if we can find it somewhere. Oh, that should do it. HSBC. Oh God, that's no good, is it? I can't bring it up as just an index. Vanguard FTSE 250. Oh, I don't know. Can't bring it up. Sorry. Tesla is gapping because GM and Ford said they're going to use their charging network. Oh yeah, I remember reading that. So Tesla, I mean that has broken out of that downtrend now for me. So I would be a buy the dipper on Tesla. So I'm in the trade already. Got a tight trailing stop on it. Interesting. I mean, it's had a bit of a reaction because it's opening up its network of superchargers to, as Kevin said, to GM and Ford. So I maybe we see a bit of cooling off next week after that initial news. Let's see. It's had its longest winning streak since January 2021, up 11 days on the trot. There you go. Tesla, XLF, the financials ETF, needs to get moving if this bull market wants to continue. Okay, XLF. That's not, is it? It's pretty boring, isn't it? So that's the ETF, the exchange traded fund that tracks the financial sector in the US, and that looks pretty dull. What's the Dow Jones look like then? Hang on a second. Dow Jones Industrial Average. That looks pretty dull, doesn't it? Compared to the S&P and the Nasdaq, pretty flat. So we're seeing perhaps some of these bigger blue chip companies perhaps not doing the same thing as some of the more go-getty companies. ARK investment. ARK must be turning, mustn't it? Surely, because these Nasdaqs are getting dragged up. So ARK, this is, it's absolutely darling of investors on the way up. Kathy Wood, the high-profile fund manager behind ARK, the ETF, innovation ETF, goes from COVID lows of $35 up to $160 and all the way back down again. So we marched them up to the top of the hill and we marched them back down. I mean, I'm in the Nasdaq. I'd rather buy the Nasdaq than ARK. You'd have done better, I think, wouldn't you? Buying the Nasdaq. Let's see. If you bought ARK, you'd have bought them at 30 something in Jan, and they're 43 today. What would you have done with the Nasdaq? Bought it at 10.8. Oh, actually, no. All right, it's pretty much the same. Fair enough. I'm being a bit unfair there. But for me, yeah, can it break out through $45, $46? Let's say. So that is ARK Innovation. Starbucks, S-Bucks. Oh, it's another buy, isn't it? They're all lining up. The stars are aligning. I just haven't got any margin left. That's the problem. Because natural gas and dollar index trades. I would be a buyer of that for me. So I'll be a buyer. We've seen it. Just in May, right at the beginning of May, it hit a new high for this recovery. Up at 116. It's come off about $18. So I'd be a buyer. The obvious place for a stop is somewhere on the other side of 96, isn't it? Let's see. Can we buy just a small amount of those and use up the last bit? Oh, I've got 30 quid margin left on my account. That explains why I can't do any trades on that YouTube account. I'll top it up over the weekend, so we've got some more money next week. That's that. Starbucks. I often struggle with fear of missing out. How do you avoid it? I think it is decades of experience by getting slapped in the face by jumping in, chasing a market, only for the market to go the other way. So, you're in the WhatsApp group, Nick, so I missed the trade yesterday on Nasdaq. Not that I'm bitter about it or anything. I said I was looking to buy, so I have missed out there. But there'll be another trade along, So I think if you look at the likes of GameStop, and some of these meme stocks that people change, and they got absolutely mullered yesterday, GameStop, didn't they? Went from 26 down to 20. I think you just got to try and park the old FOMO, the fear of missing out, and accept the fact there's always another trade. There's absolutely always another trade. So but it is clearly a big psychological thing for plenty of us. Today I cashed in a 500 pip profit shorting Coffee Arabica. Okay, let's have a look. Coffee Arabica. Should I go back in short? I'm long coffee, actually, to be honest. So I'm the other way to you on coffee. I'm long this trend. If you went short, I don't know. It's up to you, isn't it? Ultimately, it's up to you. You must have... I don't know where you went short then, but fair play. I am long coffee and quite happy to be a buyer of the dip on coffee on a daily chart. Shorter term might be slightly different. I don't trade Coffee Arabica or Arabica. I trade the other one. I don't know what they are. Oh, that's cocoa. That's not even coffee. Here we go. Coffee. That coffee. Actually, it looks pretty much the same. Cocoa looked good, didn't it? Anyway, so for me, make up your own mind. Well done on your short. But I am long coffee at the moment. Who knows? CVNA, Carvana. I saw these mentioned this week in the press. What was the reason they were mentioned? I was reading something. Oh, used car dealer. That was it. I think it was because of Kazoo. Because if you're familiar with Kazoo, a big company listed in the US, big in the UK as well. It's been an absolute disaster. Kazoo doing online sales of cars and delivering them to your door and everything else. Absolutely gone from $270 a share in Feb 21 to $1.47 today. Anyway, Carvana. had an upbeat second quarter outlook, according to Reuters. That was the news from 17 hours ago. Again, pretty bombed out though, $375 a share, currently trading at 24, so they're down more than 80%, aren't they? What would you do? I mean, again, it's a tricky one for me because the thing has gone from $10 2 weeks ago to $25 today. So for me, it's a buy the dip one. You know, I don't want to chase the market. I don't want to have the FOMO. If it goes to $50, then fair enough, it goes there without me. So for me, I'd be a buyer of the dip. It's interesting, you know, but we have seen, again, you know, you've got to be cautious. We have seen good rallies in the past for Kavana, whatever they're called, only to see them get knocked back. So personally, I think it's interesting to watch the dip and see where the dip stops. It's not one for me. It wouldn't be one for me today, if that makes sense. How are we doing for time? Well, we've got a bit of time. Dow and XLF have inverse head and shoulders. I must admit, I don't look at head and shoulders. I don't look at any patterns really, but what's that? That's a weird thing. Dow Jones. Inverse head and shoulders. I can't, and I don't look at them because I can't spot them. But I suppose, you mean that sort of thing there? What's going on? Shoulder, head, shoulder. Shop has a good chart. Shopify. We've looked at those a bit in the past, haven't we? Let's have a quick look at Shopify. Oh yeah, clearly we've got the trend drawn on there. Had a bit of a nice earnings surprise. Earnings beat expectations by 125%. So they were expected to lose 4 cents a share. They made 1 cent a share. So that for me, I'd be a buyer of that and try and follow that trend. It's done all right that there, isn't it? Very good, Kevin. Good memory. Trades are like buses. There's always another one coming round. That is very true. From Phil, like the old FOMO thing. And I think that's it, isn't it? I think we're done, actually. If that's it, there's no more questions. We'll wrap things up. Interesting afternoon with these US stock markets. They've got off to a really good start. Racing away, these markets. Nasdaq's backed off a bit. Let's see what happens. So for me, that is the market to watch next week. For me anyway. Stock markets, I think, are interesting next week. This dollar index, because we're flipping around on the support. Bit sideways the last few weeks. Flipping around on the support. Natural gas, if you fancy a chance to lose your money, because it's in that case market, because that trend has been trending, that short-term trend has been moving higher. So there's a few bits and pieces to watch next week. You know, like I say, because there's all this interest rate stuff coming out. So, you know, it's got the potential to be a pretty volatile week next week from Wednesday onwards. Wednesday night is the big one, US interest rate decision on Wednesday. So let's see how it goes for that. And that's it. So don't forget, if you want to join the WhatsApp group, it costs you 40 quid for the month, but it's well worth it. Go to the website, davidjonestrading.co.uk, put in the code YouTube, and you'll get that discount. And that's it. You can find out more about my trading performance and all the trading courses and all of that stuff in there. I'll be back. I should be back to do the live stream again next Friday. If I'm not, I'll definitely be back in 2 weeks to do the live stream, but I should do it next Friday. Any questions, drop me a line. You can contact me via the website. The link is in the description to this video. Drop me an email. Otherwise, good luck with your trading. Exciting finish to the week, I think, for stock markets. Let's see where we are this time next week. Okay, that's it. Have a good week.